Anybody else? Public hearing on the 2013 budget process. Okay.
Debbie,
oh, yes.
I'd like to make some comments if I may.
Sure.
Thank you. After listening to everyone talk. 2 weeks ago I sat in this chamber at the Community Development Committee meeting, and I admittedly was confused as we talked about this project. I got lost at times, and I didn't know which way we were talking on certain topics. I was frustrated, and as I went home 2 weeks ago, I thought about how we could have better vetted this project, how we could have used the Planning Commission to look at these projects, to look at the details. Being a former planning commissioner, I know what expertise they bring to the city. And I got more and more frustrated as I thought about the process 2 weeks ago and where we're at. And as I listened to the comments tonight, I'm reminded all over again how frustrated I was 2 weeks ago. It's happening all over again. I don't know if there's a wrong or right answer to this project and to our downtown mission. There is certainly no single opinion on what is right or wrong here. For me personally, I keep going back to something that I learned on the Planning Commission, and that was talking about roads and streets. Oftentimes we interchange those terms. Road, street, what's the difference? They're all the same. But if you talk to folks who deal with city planning, who deal with Planning Commission work, they'll tell you there is a difference between a road and a street. A road will connect neighborhoods. You go from neighborhood A to neighborhood B on a road. It's highly efficient. It moves cars. A street, on the other hand, defines a neighborhood. It creates vibrancy, and it defines how individuals interact with not only the residential units in that neighborhood, but the business properties in that neighborhood. And I can't help but think about this Johnson Drive project as we debate back and forth the countless pieces of information we have on a street project, that somehow we're maybe missing a bigger picture on, are we really trying to do a road or a street? I think this city has a huge, huge decision in front of us, and Dave Shepard spoke to that earlier tonight. We have a decision on whether we're going to, as we put money into Johnson Drive, are we redoing it as a road or a street? I would argue that in today's environment, it functions more like a road. And I would ask, in the future, do we want Johnson Drive to look more like a street that defines a downtown neighborhood, or a road that efficiently moves cars to and from individual businesses and connects neighborhood to neighborhood, city to city? I believe that the decisions we make, not only around this Johnson Drive street project, but other issues that are on this council's plate regarding downtown mission, are the most important decisions any of the 8 of us will make in our service to this city. I believe they are at the heart and soul of our community, and if there was ever a place to spend money, this, to me, is the place. Downtown Mission has been the heart of this community from day one. It defines us. I understand there's folks that don't want to spend money, that feel like we spent too much money in the past, and they've got legitimate beefs. Not debating that one bit. But if there was ever a spot to say, let's buck it up and let's invest in our community, I believe it is in our downtown district, in the heart of our community. And I just get so frustrated at times when we get caught up spending money, it seems like without any problems, on the east side of the city, on the west side of the city, on swimming pools and community centers, and talking about city halls and all these other things. And yet, it seems to me whenever we do get to Johnson Drive and downtown, which isn't enough in my opinion, all of a sudden it's like, well, we can't spend a single dime down there. I know that's not everyone's opinion. I know I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it just seems to me that there is a tightness around Johnson Drive decision making, and I don't understand that personally. To me, downtown Mission is the #1 asset our community has, hands down. There's nothing else in this city that rivals or equals historically, today, or in the future what Mission is about. And we should start treating it that way, not only when it comes to Johnson Drive and a street project, but when it comes to other issues that were brought up tonight and that have not yet been brought up regarding downtown. I believe that we must get rid of the cancers that have been eating away at downtown Mission for way too long. And stormwater is one of those cancers. There's also public property downtown that is, in my opinion, a disgrace to the city. We don't have to, but in my opinion, we should start getting rid of these cancers and investing in our future. Even if some in the community don't care or don't feel the future is a priority, I personally do. The citizens have also told us that these things are their priorities. You look at citizen surveys, and they have repeatedly, without any ambiguity, in my opinion, said that this city needs to do our streets, and we need to focus on redevelopment. Those are what the citizens care about. I believe Downtown Mission represents those cares and those priorities. And Johnson Drive is as visible of a project as we have in looking at that. At the end of the day, I just get frustrated that we're sitting here talking about technical aspects of Johnson Drive. We're talking about moving vehicles. I know there's concerns out there, but what I would like to see us talking about is how we make Johnson Drive, how we make Downtown Mission a place that people want to stay, where people want to walk from business to business, where people may want to work or live. And when we get to the point that people want to stay in Downtown Mission, I think we will see that we'll have a bright future ahead of us. So I advocate that we move forward, we invest in our downtown, and we find a way to make it work.
Mr. Andre?
I'll second Mr. Andre's comments there. I'm absolutely all for the beautification, redoing the entire streetscape and everything, but just the one aspect or one portion of the project, which is the Interceptor, is something that I'm not looking towards doing.
Other than that, I'd go for it.
Those are
absolutely core project. I mean,
Right.
core project. I'm ready. I've been ready.
To me, those are legitimate concerns, but the way I see it, and it doesn't mean it's right or wrong, it's just my perspective, is looking at this as a patient that's being treated, that if you see fixing the street as perhaps giving them a heart bypass surgery, I would consider fixing the stormwater as treating the lung cancer. And if you just treat the heart problems and you ignore the lung cancer, you've wasted a ton of money because that patient's going to die regardless. You can't just treat one disease and not the other. I see them equally important, and you don't, and that's fine. We can disagree on that, Will.
Sure.
And Jennifer.
Okay. Hearing no more comments.
I think
Pat, did you have a comment?
I did have, just a quick comment. Something you said, Lawrence, you said that our Johnson Drive and those buildings and the old downtown are the city's most precious assets. I feel that the most precious asset that we have are the people that live in the city of Mission and that work in the city of Mission and that own the businesses in the city of Mission. And we've already hit these people up recently with tax increases, fee increases, and we're trying to do it again. And what we're asking them to do, we just doubled or tripled their stormwater utility fees.
Yep.
Want to add to it again. A couple other fees we want to tack on. When I got elected, people came to me and they were talking to me, and what I heard was, we do want to see Johnson Drive fixed up. We want to see the businesses come back. What we don't want to see are increases in any more taxes. We feel like we've paid enough. You guys have money that you're already taken from the transportation utility fee to fix. You've got money you're taking in from the stormwater utility fee. Use that money and fix Johnson Drive, which the only way we can do it, the way I understand it now, is to leave that Interceptor out. I think there's a right time and a right place. You guys have said that.
Yep.
Brought that up at several meetings. I've heard the right time, the right place. Well, Mission is definitely the right place. Johnson Drive is the right place.
Yes.
We need to definitely invest there, but I don't think right now is the right time. I do think I'd like to see that basic plan, that investment. That has to be done, but we can do that without the fees that we're talking about now. So I think we need to revisit this, come back with a better plan for Mission for this time. That's my comment.
And Pat, you bring some very good comments to the table, but where I get frustrated, maybe it's just me, is that you talk about doubling and tripling stormwater fees. That money went to the east side of the city, not downtown.
I understand.
On this budget in front of us, not on this item, but in front of us this evening, it seems like this council has no problem investing up to $10 million likely in an outdoor swimming pool. Yet, that was not a problem, but when it comes to spending money for downtown, now's not the right time to spend that money. We can spend it other places. I find it disappointing that we spend it other places and we don't choose to spend it here. If it's either or, I would get that. Let's say not to do some of these other projects and let's just do this. But when those projects happen and this one doesn't, that's what really irritates me.
Well, the swimming pool project will be decided by the people in a vote. If they want it, they're going to vote it in, and they're going to pay for it.
I see that differently. We as a council said we think we need to move forward on it. Now, if we would have put multiple sales taxes in front of them and said, you want to have a sales tax for downtown, you want to have a sales tax for the pool, or you want to have a sales tax for something else, and then let them decide between a plethora of sales taxes, then I might see your perspective. But we didn't give them that choice. So far, we've only given them the choice, you want to go spend some money on a pool.
Do you want to build a pool?
Yeah, that's the only choice we've
Well,
given
and
them.
also, Lawrence, I think that a lot of the residents were under the impression with the TUF and the stormwater utility fees that they were giving their money toward Johnson Drive. There were a lot of people that anticipated that that was a big priority and that would be fixed. And that it hasn't, and we're still revisiting it at this point, is a frustration for people out there, especially since the TUF was instituted.
Amen, Jennifer. I share that frustration. I don't know how many times I said frustration tonight, but gosh, they're boiling over here with frustration. At the end of the day, I keep asking myself, as a city council member, I believe my role is to find a way to overcome that frustration, and it's not easy. As every time I try, I get dragged back down into that frustration. But sooner or later, I have to overcome that frustration and figure out what is in the best interest of the city. And no matter how frustrated I am at some of these other projects that this council has considered and or done, I can't let that personally impact my perspective on this project, which is the heart of our city. Just me. Others can have different opinions, and that's very legitimate.
Okay. Excellent dialogue. I think that it's healthy for us to discuss these things, and I think it's a transparent process, and I personally appreciate that. I have a question. This may deviate a little bit from the process, but I need to ask this question. If we go back, if there was an opportunity for us to collaborate with Fairway after reviewing their stormwater plan, if indeed they signed that letter, I'm looking out in the sky here. I need to know this for concreteness to be able to apply logic to how we do business. If they did that and we had the stormwater money from SMAC reapplied to this project, timing and money, what would that do to this project?
Well, let's start with the project that we submitted. It is the best option, is the Interceptor. If you don't vote for it, we don't have a SMAC project anymore. So you'd have to figure out what the next SMAC project is. The second thing is, while it would be nice to think that we have all the time in the world to go through another set of studies, and I think one of the things, and if Mr. Weber's behind me, I know that Mr. Weber and I were on 2 or 3 different stormwater types of task force and committees and watersheds, and we have worked diligently with our neighbors. In fact, most of the money that Fairway received was direct result of our efforts to get money for the Rock Creek watershed. The decision before you is, we need to know what stormwater design we're putting in the street. We need to know that so that we can finish the design of Johnson Drive and go forward. There's an option that says you don't do the collector and we do whatever the local storm drainage needs are. So, you know, there's a net or the Interceptor comes out, but there's still storm drainage improvements that we make and we eventually tie to the creek. So the idea that there's no stormwater improvements isn't true. It's just the type of stormwater improvements are different. We're at the point, and it's really tonight, we don't have a lot of time. We've pushed this off for about 2 months now. We need to know what the stormwater option is that you want to select. And once you select it, that's what we're going to design, get it approved by KDOT, and we go through the process. I also don't want you to think that I hear these construction estimates, And the interceptor isn't going to materially affect the amount of time that Johnson Drive is torn up. So I don't want anybody to think that you took the interceptor out and we're going to build it that much faster, because it isn't. That's not how it works. We're going to build it at about the same pace. It's just the size of the holes that will be in the street will be different. And that's basically it. It's going to take what it's going to take in terms of time. It will impact businesses. And the thing that we remind the engineering firm, and we did it with Null, to find every way that we can to limit business disruption and to move the project as fast as we can along. We think that in this particular construction environment where there's so few jobs, like Null, we actually think they'll be very aggressive in getting it done. But tonight you have to make a decision. Do you want the interceptor or not? If you decide not to do the interceptor, I can't imagine that you're going to come back and tear up Johnson Drive later. Just understand now the options that you're looking at are more boxes in Rock Creek eventually, if that's what you want to do. It doesn't, the interceptor in and of itself doesn't eliminate flooding. Removing the interceptor doesn't eliminate flooding either. There is no flooding on the north side. The flooding is all on the south side of Johnson Drive, and it's really along Woodson, and it's along Rock Creek. So I think you need to know where the flooded properties are. They're not on the north side. So we need to know, are we designing an interceptor, or are we designing for local stormwater collection?
Thank you. Martha? Let's call roll, please.
Okay, just clarification.
Motion read again.
I don't know if we can, presently on the motion that's on the table has got the interceptor in it.
Correct.
Correct.
It just excludes.
Okay, I just want everybody clear.
Correct.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Sure. Come forward. Susan, you have a
Can I
comment?
just say one thing?
Sure.
I would just like to say that I am very proud to live in Mission, and I'm very happy to tell people I live in Mission. I talked to a lot of businesses. In 2 days, I talked to 12 different businesses this last week. They are all doing wonderful. They love Mission. They're excited to be here. They think that we are really proactive. And I think it's really sad when people say they aren't proud to say they live in Mission, because I'm very proud to live in Mission, and I don't like to hear people say that. So.
Second.
Let's say one last.
Go ahead.
Last comment from me is that, look, I understand the short-term pain. I understand the economy that we have been in. But when people say, I know everybody has a lot of comments, but from the chair I sit in, I care about what the city of Mission looks like 20 years from now. I really do. I want my children to be raised here. I want them to come back here. I want us to still own our home here. I want us to still frequenting businesses down on Johnson Drive. And the way Mission looks 20 years from now really matters to me. And when I look at this interceptor project, you can build 1 box versus 2 boxes. Not only economically does it make sense, from an engineer perspective, it makes sense. It's the right thing to do. It may be unpopular among some, but it's the right thing to do. In your heart of hearts, it's the right thing to do to put this city in the best absolute position for the future.
Thank you, Mr. Shepherd. Okay. Are you okay with the motion that's on the floor in terms of clarity? Do you want it repeated? Does anybody need the motion repeated? Okay. Martha, would you please call the roll?
Andre?
Aye.
Cowdery?
Nay.
Gibbs?
Aye.
Crane?
Aye.
Miller?
Nay.
Quinn?
Nay.
Shepherd?
Aye.
Vandenberg?
Hey,
Mr. Scanlon, point of order, please.
I have to have something to tell the engineers to design. I'm running out of time to do that. If I thought there was, I mean, and I'm going to put, is Paul Moore here? So I get to put Justin on the spot. If I had if I had a council meeting next Wednesday, what does that do to the schedule?
That's our planning commission and council meeting.
Yeah, but it's also it's a scheduled meeting in our code.
If you have a meeting next week, it's probably fine. If you have to wait till next month, then it's a guess and hope I'm right kind of situation.
So we can bring the item back to the city council, but my concern is the amount of information that we have to give you, you have it all. And it's really down to, do you want to put in the interceptor and plan for future storm drainage or not? I think John Swart probably gave the easiest description. If you don't do the interceptor, then you're sort of already in the buying property mode. So that's how you'll remove property from the floodplain. I'll take direction from, with a 4-4 it's hard to say to take direction. I'll talk with the mayor. I'll tell her what the outcome of the vote was. Since there's not a majority on either side, we'll just put it under unfinished business again for next Wednesday and schedule the meeting at 7 with the work session to follow.
Mike, so I keep hearing that we have this constraint, time constraint. Can you explain what specifically is the time constraint? Is it the 2.9 million, whatever, in federal funding that we're going to lose?
Correct.
That's 100% the issue.
Correct. Because we have to get the project approved by KDOT, and then Overland Park administers it.
Okay, and when does that have to be approved by KDOT? And what's the time?
That's what.
Oh, okay, got it.
The project design for this to date isn't at the stage of, you voted on Martway earlier tonight. That design is nearly 100% complete. This project isn't at that stage of design yet, but in order to do all the utility relocation designs and coordinate all that work, which there's substantial work to be done for that, with or without, the utilities need to know where to go. And they have months and months of work ahead of them. So we have to know, because our utility relocation paperwork to KDOT, they need that to push this forward. So there's a lot of months ahead of utility work to get out of the way for whatever we build, which is why we need to know what storm system is going in there.
So just one other question about your comment about if we don't do this, and I might be missaying that, but my comment or my question is around, we're in the buying property business, so I don't really understand why the city has to be in the buying property business.
You can leave it there in the floodplain, but if the goal is to remove property from the floodplain, you would eventually want to buy it. Because you're restricted on what people can do to improve it, there's only one direction that's likely to head over time, and that's just slow decline, because you won't be able to tear something down and rebuild it or replace it with something else.
So I think that I know you made a comment that there's pretty much no additional information. We pretty much know everything. I personally feel as though, and maybe that's our fundamental disagreement here on the council, is I don't think we've come to an agreement on what the goal is. Mm-hmm. So I can't tell you as a council person what the goal is. So I don't know what the goal is. So maybe that's something, I don't know if other people feel the same way, that we could come to some agreement on, because if we were in agreement on the goal, then the decision might be easier. And then the other thing is, as I've said multiple times this evening, I personally do not feel I have enough information to be convinced that a mill and overlay or some lesser solution that does not include stormwater is not a viable option. I know that individuals have made a statement that the substructure of the current Johnson Drive is in such disrepair because of all the water main breaks that have occurred. I would really like to hear from Johnson County Water One about that, because I do believe when there is a water main break, the Johnson County Water One is responsible for putting that back in as best repair. I mean, I think they personally would take issue with us implying that the substructure, and maybe I misunderstood what was represented to me, that the substructure is in such disrepair because of that. So that's something I personally need some more information about to be convinced that the only way is to completely tear it all the way out and start again.
But while I can provide that information, you get back to the interceptor, what's the storm sewer system you're putting in? I mean, I can get you information on the water lines and the cost of mill and overlay, understanding that you lose the federal funding, but in the end, understand if you're just walking away from the design, from the rebuilding of Johnson Drive, and I'm not sure I heard that. I think I kind of heard everybody said they want to rebuild Johnson Drive. Right. So if that's the case, I'm kind of right back over here. Tell me what you want in terms of stormwater conveyance, because that's what's going to determine where we head.
Well, I think the other thing I heard, and what we heard earlier tonight in Interceptor 101, is that actually adding the interceptor is only going to add 2 to 3 months to the entire project. So if the council is in agreement that they do want to completely rip out Johnson Drive, which again, I personally am not convinced that's what needs to be done, you're still looking at a 10 to 16 month project. So if we're going to tear out Johnson Drive, soup to nuts, and fix it, regardless of an interceptor,
right,
you're only gaining 2 to 3 months.
Well, and I would be careful because we're all using numbers, and I'm not sure that we have enough information to use all of these things. Because if you're not doing the intercept, you're still doing the stormwater system, and that stormwater system would probably be installed similarly to the interceptor. My guess is we're going to avoid the duct banks on the north side, and so it's just the size of what gets put in the street. So if the size of what gets put in the street gets smaller, it should go faster, but is it really going to go that much faster? And we could get into Johnson Drive and reconstructing it, and it still took 12 to 18 months, and it was for things that we couldn't have foreseen in terms of a utility relocation. So I think you have to be careful that you could take it out and it could still take a long time, and that's what I want to guard against, that people think because you took it out you can do it faster. That could very well not be the case.
Okay, Scanlon, just for clarity, for next step purposes, you'll speak with the mayor by the end of the week?
Correct.
And will we be looking at another meeting next Wednesday?
We have, our code book allows us to have a council meeting on the fourth Wednesday of the month.
And what information will be brought to us at that time that would change what we've discussed here tonight?
I think that would probably have to be up to the individual council.
The time that it's going to take to tear up Johnson Drive.
It's getting torn up.
It'll be torn up with utility lines.
Regardless.
My issue is number 3.
My issue is number 3.
I could have, if we changed number 3, and you guys came up with a real good plan, which I'm sure engineers have a real good plan on not disrupting businesses any more than they have to, because I know when they shut down, the end of Lamar, they shut down a business. It died. It could not survive. So if you can come up with a good plan that does not dislocate their business, I would love to see it. I know that you've talked a little bit about that, but I would love to hear more about that. But my issue is number 3, and it always has been number 3, and it's been the ERUs. We always spend more than we take in. And when it comes to a project like this, we never can afford it, and we always end up increasing the cost of business.
Mr. Shepherd?
Well, again, I want to go back and revisit a couple of things that was said tonight. There have been 20 different models that have been looked at in terms of how to improve stormwater mitigation through downtown. And the interceptor is not only the most effective, it is the most cost effective. So I think Councilwoman Miller raises a good point. What is our goal as it relates to this project? And for me personally, the way I would define it is, what is the most economical way to improve our stormwater system through downtown and rebuild Johnson Drive? And from where I sit and what I know about this project, it is the interceptor that affords us that best opportunity.
One more. Let's go.
Well, we got some important stuff here. I think if council members want to speak, let's make sure we get this done. Let's get it done tonight. Well, I was intrigued by Ms. Miller's comment about the goal of the city, and as the city council, as I listened to back and forth, I'm not sure we've hit on the various goals yet. What I'm hearing, and I may be hearing incorrectly, is that there's some of us that want to make sure we spend enough and invest in Johnson Drive and downtown Mission, and there's others that think maybe we don't need to spend as much, that maybe this is a place to cut some spending. That's what I hear back and forth. That's the defining issue, and stormwater seems to be that spot where we're making that judgment decision, and each of the 8 of us are coming to the best judgment with the facts that we have, and I respect that. But, Mr. Shepherd, you talked about your goal. You articulated a goal for Mission just a moment ago. I would raise that to a slightly different level from my perspective. My goal is to make sure that downtown Mission is as strong as it can be, that it remains the #1 asset of our community, along with the people that love to be there. And I want to make sure we do what it takes to keep it that way, and that's my goal. And if that means $2.3 million on Interceptor, which our technical expertise have told us, it sucks. To use a non-technical word, it sucks. But that's what it takes. That's what it takes. My goal is to make sure downtown Mission is the heart of the community and something we can all continue to be proud of.
Mr. Andre, can I ask just one more question?
Sure.
So, since some of us object to the $5 ERU, and it appears as though we have to make a stormwater decision. So, as you said, Mike, something's going to have to go in there because, as multiple people have said, at least on this side of this table, it's going to get ripped up. Johnson Drive's going to get torn up, and it's going to be out of commission for businesses for 12 plus months. And we need a stormwater solution.
Correct.
So I think one of the questions on the table is, what are our alternative stormwater solutions, and are they north or south of $5?
Talking about in terms of financing stormwater solutions.
Financing the stormwater solution, yeah, so.
Significantly south of $5.
So, Ms. Miller, I think one thing that comes to my mind, it may not be a good solution, we haven't talked about as a council, but I would welcome using more sales tax dollars for these types of things. And
That's a great
Something somebody can vote on.
Right.
Exactly right. I'm
Yep.
all for
Right.
3/8 of a cent sales tax to strengthen our downtown. That's something that gets me really excited. But unfortunately, where we're at today, that would be a very difficult, we can't design and contract a project without dedicated funding. So if we were interested in pursuing that, I think the only solution in front of us is to go with the current financing model and then putting a plan B in front of voters and say, choose. You choose whether you want the ERU to pay for this or you want sales tax to pay for it. If you want the sales tax, you go for it. If you don't, it's going to be an ERU. I think that's the only way we have to do that, but we're a little late in the game for that decision, unfortunately.
You're saying you suggest passing it the way it is and then bringing back an option for them later because it's too late to get the sales tax in on this.
You can't pass this dependent on a sales tax passing later, so we'd have to pass this, with the funding in place. But the funding could always be switched to a later date.
And again, the city just passed a 1/4 cent sales tax for streets. I think that there were actually people, residents in the city, who thought that 1/4 cent sales tax might go toward Johnson Drive. Just a guess.
It
We were
is.
told that there were 20 other options for stormwater. The reason this one was chosen, it was the least expensive, and you guys anticipated SMAC, correct? We don't have SMAC now. There are more options than just this for stormwater abatement in the city of Mission, but this was the only one we were given in reference to this and told this was the best.
This is the one, out of all the options that are out there, that's the most, I think Charlie said it best. It's either one box in Johnson Drive or 2 in the creek.
If we even do any boxes in the creek.
Correct. Or nothing. And it's either we design a stormwater system to handle the local flow on Johnson Drive, or you put the interceptor on Johnson Drive now and allow for future floodplain improvements. I mean, it's really that simple.
So, one other thing, in our meeting last week, a comment was made that if there was an opinion that if no additional infrastructure changes were made, there was an opinion that what we have today is sufficient. Can Black and Beach speak to, I mean, so where does that comment fit into this?
In terms of sufficient for what?
That we don't need any additional changes for what our city needs?
Well,
Well, we were talking specifically about stormwater.
About the floodplain.
Yeah, we're talking about the floodplain.
well, and I think, and I'm trying to remember the context of it, the city council by resolution, and I don't remember which one, chose option 4, which is 31.4 million, which is the one that takes that $8.8 million worth of property out of the floodplain and really eliminates the floodplain. But to fully realize it, you also have the secondary stormwater system that you also have to take care of. So if you do number 4 and you continue to make improvements in your secondary storm system, yeah, that will be sufficient.
So one other question, and I know when we talked about the pool, there was a timeline to get something on a ballot. So
Correct.
if we were to entertain Councilmember Andre's suggestion, could we get something on the ballot if we make a decision by the end of August? Was it the end of August that we needed to do that?
August 30.
We need to have a decision by next week.
And what's the publication requirement?
I'm not sure, I couldn't tell you right off the...
Yeah, because you're going to have a publication requirement so many days after this ordinance passed and is published, and my guess is you'll extend beyond August 31st. So we'd have to sit down and look and make sure that that was possible.
Can we bring that to the table? Do I need to make a motion or something to bring that to table as an option?
Certainly. And my question, the $5 a month ERU, that is the issue. If we were doing this in the context of it's going to cost any more, and it's just picking whether it's local or Interceptor, would that make the issue go away?
Probably not for me, but maybe for others.
It would be a significant difference to me, yeah, after you've raised it 7 times on the business owners, and then you come back. Yeah, I don't believe in increasing fees.
And then here's a question. If we were to, by council action, make a decision that because of the hardship that this project was going to place on those businesses, they weren't required to pay the additional $5 ERU, would it change your decision for those businesses on Johnson Drive?
Where would you get the money to do this if you didn't do that? I mean, is this a moot point? Is this a...
No, because the number of ERUs generated on Johnson Drive probably only represents 8 or 9% of the total.
It's still increasing costs on business owners.
And residents. And residents.
And residents. Question of,
Okay, so
it's the ERUs that always has to be...
Go ahead, Mike.
So getting rid of the $5 makes a difference if it's for everyone.
Right.
I've told you that.
Okay.
I have something I want to give direction for August 22nd. Just for the record, we've been on all kinds of other things, so I didn't go to this point, but if this is coming back to us on August 22nd, I just wanted to say that I do not like the idea of kicking some of these decisions to September. I don't think that disconnect was presented to us tonight. I may be the only one. It would be my preference on August 22nd if those other items were put in and we decide all this at once. Depending on how those other items fall out, I may not support this resolution, and you put at least me in a bind. You may put others in a bind by separating those between August and September. So if there's a way to bring those items to August 22nd instead of kicking them September, I would prefer that, but it's not just my decision. I understand that.
I'll work with Justin and Olson, and we'll try very hard to do something next Tuesday, because I want to give the people along Johnson Drive an opportunity to see what's being discussed and voted on.
Thank you.
We have 7B, which is a 2013 budget resolution and financial policies, but it can't work in concert unless this one was...
I was going to say, it's kind of a waste of energy to continue until you figure that, and that's why we placed Johnson Drive at the top. If that was going to be a stumbling block, then the rest
Sure.
need to wait.
So we will see
Those
all
five.
5 of these items next Wednesday.
Correct.
At 7 o'clock.
Correct.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's move